Hello everybody, it's Sabre Wolf, and yes, I am back again for another D&D breakdown. This is a series that takes in all the subclasses, races, and some of the areas of D&D. It breaks down the information for you all so you help you understand it more and make a determination if you want to try this out. Now, the start of this series is going to go over, of course, the Teldari Reborn. This is the new book that was put out by Critical Role, which is a 5e D&D ready-to-go subclass featured with campaigns, classes, races, and everything else. This specifically takes place in the Todori continent, although this particular class subclass I'm going to talk about next is going to be part of from the Wildmount, which is a separate continent in that same Critical Role world, which is called Exandria. So with this book here, so this again takes place in Todori, the central area, but the second campaign that they did took place in Wildmount, which is a separate continent. But anybody can come from anywhere, and if you want to try this out, it's a great changeover from, say, the Sword Coast or Faerun to try it out with. So without further ado, today we're going to be talking about the Cleric Blood Domain. Now, if you're a little squeamish about blood things, you're not comfortable with it, maybe this is not the video for you. So they did put a warning in the book, in this book about it, so I'm going to say the same thing here as well. So if blood magic is not your cup of tea, there's two subclasses actually in this book that delves into that area. You can go in and skip this video. I won't feel bad about it. Okay. So without further ado, we are going to do the Cleric Blood Domain. Developed in Wildmount, like I mentioned, by the Claret Orders, the Blood Domain centers around the understanding of the natural life force as it exists within the body and the divine conduit it can become. Those who take up this domain understand that the power of blood is the power of sacrifice, the balance of life and death, and the spirit anchors within the mortal shell. It also gave some suggested gods being the Ruiner, which is I believe, one of the fallen gods. And there's also the Matron of Ravens was given another option to use. I believe that's also the Raven Queen. I think it's kind of the same thing. So those are the two. You can also have other gods that can go in there. Other gods and other religions, even good and evil, have blood sacrifices with it. So like Orcus would be another one maybe. If you have like a orc-based character, any of those would work. So this again, just like the Bard one I did the other day, talks about like you having to sacrifice or taking negatives within the gameplay or that you do to create positives of other things. And that's pretty much what any kind of blood health thing does. You sacrifice another resource, which in this case is health, in order to create another effect of somewhere else. So that's basically what anything does in any kind of game you play. This is this version, and it takes place within the Cleric class. So first up, a couple of domain spells. Of course, with any domains, you have certain domain spells. This list is very strong. Goes in the strong category. Again, if you gain the domain spells, the cleric level is listed in the blood domain spell table. The spell table is at first level you get false life and sleep. Sleep is good at low levels, but not so much high levels. But false life would take you out of the jam, especially at low levels. Third level you get hold person and ray of enfeeblement. Ray of enfeeblement is really rough to deal with sometimes, so that's pretty good. Hold person is good, situational, mostly maybe in RP, but it still can help. At fifth level, you get haste and slow. Both of them great spells to have. It takes the maybe a little bit off your wizard, so wizard can actually focus on doing damaging spells, and you can be in the background concentrating on haste or slow, depending on which one you're doing. So those are two great spells. Level 7, you got Blight and Stone Skin. Not familiar with Stone Skin, but Blight is a very good spell to use against a group of enemies. And at 9th level, we have Dominate Person and Hold Monster. Basically, improved versions of the third levels of Cleric that you had, and both of them are pretty darn good as well. Now, a couple of things at first level, I put them on the same page because you gain a proficiency in martial weapons. Some other ones you get proficiency in heavy armors and stuff, but in this one you're only getting martial weapons, so that's your long swords and such. And also level 1 you get bloodletting focus. When you cast a damage dealing spell of first level or higher, so again, not Toll the Dead, because Toll the Dead is a cantrip, so this is first level or higher. And its duration is instantaneous. Any creature with blood that takes damage from the spell takes an extra necrotic damage equal to 2 plus the spell's level. I don't know if this would work with spiritual weapon or not, because technically it is a damaging spell. But I don't. Oh no, the duration is not instantaneous because it stays up. So this would be like radiance, basically. That would be in this was like 46 radiant damage, plus it's a first level spell, so plus 2 plus 1, so 3. So it'd be a 4d6 radiant plus 3 necrotic. Kind of weird when you have radiant and necrotic damage kind of mixing together. But it adds a little boost. I mean, you do enjoy it when you run into add effects when you do melee attacks with your strength modifier, or warlocks in the back row, using the Eldritch Blast with using the modifier for their charisma plus 5. It can really boost that low end damage and make it a little more. Give you more higher damage just to make it more consistent, basically, for that. So that's basically where it comes from. So yeah, find some spells that would work for you for that on the cleric spell, and you can boost up the damage a little bit. Now this, I know, we got a couple of old texts here coming up. I'm going to warn you that, and a lot of it's also Channel Divinity. Both of these two are Channel Divinity, level 2 and level 6. But first we got Crimson Bond. You can use a Channel Divinity to form a supernatural bond with a creature you can see or a creature for which you possess a blood sample of. So if you have those vials, maybe you have one of those necklace things that has some blood in it, that particular creature, you can target them if they're within 10 miles away from you. This bond lasts for 1 hour and until your concentration is broken, like a spell. So you have to do a concentration check with Constitution. Since this is like a spell, it says like a spell, and it's listed as like a spell, as of concentrating on a spell. So since it's like concentrating on a spell, maybe it uses the mage feat. But it does say like a spell, so that could be argued. While this bond is in effect, the target is within 10 miles from you. You can use an action to learn the target's approximate distance and direction from you, current hit points, and any condition that's affecting it. So basically, you get information on a certain creature. Maybe you're tracking somebody and you got some of their blood. You can put it into a vial or something, and you can start tracking them. Alternately, you can use your action to attempt to connect the target's senses. You yourself will take 2d6 necrotic damage. Now again, this comes from the sacrificing a pool, which is your health pool, in order to have some other positive effect happen. So after you do that, the target will feel a wave of uneasiness. Now they'll feel this wave whether they save or they don't save. They still feel this wave of uneasiness. That's why I worded it this way. I try to condense this down, guys. Try to get some of the fluff, so try to get to the point of all this. The target will feel a wave of uneasiness regardless of what happens and must make a Constitution saving throw versus your spell DC. So cleric based is your wisdom, so it's wisdom proficiency modifier, that one, plus all together. Usually it's going to be around 16, 17, or like that, so it's going to be pretty good. If the target saves, the bond ends, nothing happens. So you basically take 2d6 damage and nothing happens, other than they feel this weirdness around them. On the fail, however, you can choose to see and hear through the target senses for a number of minutes equal to your wisdom modifier. And the part I didn't add in there is that you're blinded or deafened while this happens. So basically what this all means is you basically have the pet ability from the wizard. And so instead of taking the senses of smell and hearing and sight from your wizard pet, you can do this with a person. And you take 2d6 damage, and you can not only just know where they are, but you can see what they're doing on top of that for like a minute or so. So actually for like an hour even. So yeah, it's pretty. It's pretty. Oh, sorry, for 1 minute. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. A number of minutes equal to your wisdom modifier. So since you're a cleric, your wisdom modifier. So you're looking at +4, +5 even. So you're looking at 4 or 5 minutes worth. So this is kind of like not divine senses. I'm trying to think of clairvoyance in a way where you're trying to see the target like that from the wizard spell or a cleric even. This does the same exact thing, and you can do it at level 2 with a channel divinity, sacrificing your health, but you basically can see and hear everything like you do with a pet. So that's pretty crazy, actually. Pretty good. Now at 6th level, we have another channel divinity. It's called Blood Puppet. Now this expounds on the previous thing. So when you use your channel divinity to briefly control a creature's actions, whether the creature is living or dead. As an action, you target a large or smaller creature or corpse within 60 feet of you that has blood. Now, if we go back to the to our map here, what 60 feet means, this is what 60 feet is. I mean, you can target something really, really far away that's within 60 feet of you. That's a pretty good radius. Oh, sorry, let me switch to that map. Haha. So yeah, like I said, 60 feet is pretty far away on our Roll20 map here. So it's a pretty good range, 60 feet target. That's actually a pretty darn good range. The creature you target must make a wisdom saving throw versus your spell DC again, which again is probably around 16, or become charmed. Unconscious creatures or the corpses auto fail the save and are not incapacitated while you're controlling their actions. So usually when you're dead or the corpse is dead, it's incapacitated technically. So this circumvents that rule, so you can actually animate them and act around. The affected creature or animated corpse turn is immediately after yours, and you can command it, no action required by you, to move it up to half its speed and use its action to interact with an object, make a single attack, or just sit there and do nothing. The control target uses its original stats, so whatever stats it died with, or whatever the current stats are when it was alive and you control it by charm. It keeps those same exact stats, so if you something died and had 18 strength, you bring it back up and do a single attack, it still gets that +4 modifier from the strength. At the end of the affected target's turn, it can make a saving throw to end the connection, so you can remake the wisdom saving throw again versus your spell DC. And at level 17, the target can be huge or smaller. So if you kill a giant, I think, because giants are huge, at level 17, so it's just quite a ways down the road, you can reanimate it to fight for you. And it needs a wisdom saving throw. Not bad. And when it breaks the connection, it's going to go back to its original state, which means it's going to go back to a corpse. So for like a turn or two, you could have a giant fighting on your team making attacks. That's not bad. And giants actually don't move slow either. So even though it's half movement speed, it's actually it's pretty much almost full movement. And also, before I get to the next one, again, right below me is a picture from the Tal'Dorei Reborn book. This is again a sample of what it would look like on what a blood domain cleric would look like. So, and you see he's balancing a dagger with some blood magic kind of going around the dagger. So, I always like to chip that in, by the way. Also, level 6, we have Sanguine Recall, or Sanguine Recall, whichever you want to say it. You can sacrifice a portion of your own vitality to recover expanded spell slots. The spell slots can have a combined level equal to or less than half your cleric level, rounded up, and none of the spell slots can be level 6 or higher. So level 5 is the maximum, like any other thing you try to regain spell slots. You take 1d6 necrotic damage for each spell slot level recovered, which cannot be reduced in any way. So there's no way of reducing the damage you take. So like barbarian, if you say barbarian to reduce damage, like a bear totem, you cannot be reduced in that way. You just take the full damage of whatever this is doing. You cannot use the feature again until you take a long rest. And the example it gave is so if you're level 8, you take 48 necrotic damage, and you recover a total of 4 levels of spells. This could be one single level 4 spot, or you can get 1 second level and 2 first level slots. So as long as it adds up to 4, that's how many you get, and that's 4 slots. That's 48 that you take for necrotic damage, which, if you think about it, can be pretty rough. That's like you could get up to 32 points of self damage, necrotic damage, that you cannot negate when it happens. So you could kill yourself by doing this, and again, this is that whole health pool resource to do other things with that is synonymous with almost any game you play it with, not just D&D. There's other games out there that do it. Again, this is another resource thing. I personally not a fan of health resource as a resource to do things with, because you do put yourself at a disadvantage because your health pool is what keeps you on the field. And if you're using that thing that keeps you on the field, you probably aren't going to be as effective as you could be. But since this is a cleric role, which usually those blood things are usually done by casters, more in the back, more fighters in the front sometimes, which one of the ones, which the other one in here is a wizard, I believe. Since it's a back row, maybe not quite as damaging to your party because you're not really in the front lines trying to take the damage, but you're still using a resource that keeps you on the field. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to play a subclass like this. Level 8, we have the Divine Strike, which you see in a lot of clerics. The Tashas did add this as an option to just have on all clerics. Basically, when you deal a weapon attack, you do an extra 1d8. For those, it's Radiant. Of course, we're dealing with blood magic, so it's necrotic. And at level 14, it actually increases to a 2d8. Again, this is a Tasha's thing where it gives you the 1d8 Radiant. Actually, if it's an optional thing, this gives you to it straight up as a class feature, and it's necrotic damage instead of radiant damage, so it's kind of already there. And last but not least, we have to jump all the way to level 17, and that's Vascular Corruption Aura. You can use your action for 1 minute, any hostile creature with blood that moves within 30 feet of you for the first time on a turn, or starts its turn in that range, takes 3d6 necrotic damage. If a hostile creature with blood regains hit points while inside this area, it regains only half as many hit points. So if you roll a 2d8, if the healer for the other team rolls a 2d8, and the thing, say, tries to heal for 10 hit points, and only gets 5 hit points. And once you use this feature, you cannot use it again until a long rest. Again, it's a really strong feature to have. So this is a non-concentration Spirit Guardians, essentially. I think it's actually with a larger range, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see if I can find Spirit Guardians really quick while I'm trying to record this. Spirit Guardians is a 15-foot radius. So this is actually a twice the amount of range, and for about the same damage. Right, because I believe that's the same exact damage. It's 3d8, so slightly less damage. So slightly less damage Spirit Guardians that you don't have to concentrate on, but it has twice the radiant range. Radius range, not radiant range. Radius range. And it deals necrotic damage and has a healing debuff to the hostile creatures. So it doesn't affect your creatures, it affects your team, it affects only the other team. So again, this is area control. So you turn yourself into a control mage, and when you get to level 17, this is way at the end. Most games only play up to level, for low levels to level 10 and such like that. A lot of people are not going to see this. And again, this is basically Spirit Guardians. So in that sense, is it good? Meh. I mean, Spirit Guardians is a level 3 spell, I think. So it's a level 3 spell. So you're not really getting much out of that. And it's just level 17. I mean, you're already casting 8th levels plus spells now. So, and having ability at 8th level spell casting, only dealing 3d6 necrotic, yes, you don't have to concentrate on it. Yes, it's a bigger range. Yes, it has a healing debuff. I mean, it does. It does. It does. I mean, it will do a lot of damage. And the interesting thing about this is also it's like the first time in a turn, on a turn, not its turn, on turn, it starts in the radius range. So, if we go to our handy D&D Roll20 map here, let's just reduce Kirill. Let's say Kirill's the cleric in this situation. We'll reduce his range down to 30 here. Hit save there. Just for a point of note for the difference in range here, let's put 15 feet, and we'll do a circle there. Save. So this would be Spirit Guardian's range here. This green area versus this would be the orange area. So a much bigger area to do this in. And if we go back to what we were saying before about the about when a creature moves into that range. So say we are currently, well, actually we're using this right here, so we're actually in a different range here. So say we are using, going back to that barbarian. You remember the barbarian that we talked about the other day? The Juggernaut barbarian. That one, you can move your target enemy away from you 5-10 feet away from you. So say we're at the level 17, so we're at a high level, so we can move them 10 feet away. So we'll say Orchrus attacks, does the move, then pushes them 10 feet in. So not only, so this is on a turn, not this creature's turn, we're on Orchrus's turn. But if you look at the term that it says, it states that it is when on a turn, first time on a turn. So you can have your barbarian push this target into the range of this effect. It takes the 3d6 necrotic damage because it moved into it on a turn. And then when it starts its turn, because it's still in this effect, it takes an additional 3d6 necrotic damage. So also keep that in mind when you're trying to push things, blow things, move things with like the Juggernaut Barbarian that I talked about before. That can combo move this to add extra damage with that ability. So keep that in mind. All right, everybody. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for the Blood Domain Cleric. It's really, really interesting, I will say. Again, it's from the Tal'Dorei Reborn, so check that book out. It's $50. I would recommend getting it from them, not from Amazon, because the only Amazon store I saw it for upped the price to $80. So, yeah. Try to buy it from the actual people that make it, all right? I am Sabre Wolf. Thank you, and have a good day.